Story number 1. The motel room that wouldn't let him check out. The checkout time was 11 a.m., and Derek Salter had been trying to leave room 14 of the Pineview Motor Lodge in Flagstaff, Arizona since 9:30, but every time he reached the door, he found himself back in bed. Not dizzy, not disoriented. Back in bed, sheets pulled up, phone on the nightstand, television off. Like he'd never gotten up. The first time it happened, he assumed he'd fallen asleep mid-motion. Some kind of micro-sleep episode from the previous day's 12-hour drive. He'd been pushing hard from Albuquerque to Oregon, stopping at Pineview just past midnight on March 4th, 2023. Because his eyes were failing him on the road. The motel was cheap and available, $28 a night, which should have been a warning sign but wasn't. He got up a second time, washed his face at the bathroom sink, cold water, fully awake. Felt the shock of it, the floor under his feet, the texture of the carpet through his socks. He packed his overnight bag, zipped it closed, slung it over his shoulder, walked to the door, hand on the knob, turned it. He was in bed, bag unpacked on the chair, face dry. Derek sat up and said nothing for 30 seconds. He was 31 years old, a landscape architect from Denver, not a man prone to paranoia or spiritual thinking. He believed in concrete evidence, logical sequences, cause and effect. There was a logical explanation. He just couldn't find it yet. He tried again, deliberately this time, kept his eyes open, watched everything, packed slowly, consciously, touched each object as he placed it in the bag, registered every sensation, walked to the door watching his hands reach forward, fingers touch metal, bed, unpacked, face dry. He hadn't blinked at the wrong moment or lost consciousness. He'd watched himself walk to the door, and then he was somewhere else with no transition. No fade, no jump, just here and then there. The television turned on by itself. Local news, morning anchor cheerful against a weather graphic showing clear skies. The bedside clock read 9:41. Only 11 minutes had passed across 3 attempts. Derek looked at his phone. Same time confirmed. He called the front desk. "I need to check out. This is room 14. "Of course, sir. Checkout is at 11. You have some time. I'm trying to leave now. I keep." He stopped. What was he going to say? Is there anything strange about this room? Pause. Strange how? I keep trying to leave and I can't. Longer pause. "Sir, is the door stuck? I can send someone." "The door isn't stuck. Just tell me, is there something wrong with room 14? The clerk's voice changed slightly. Became careful. "I'll send Marcus from housekeeping to assist you." Marcus knocked 6 minutes later. Derek answered the door. The hallway beyond Marcus's shoulder looked real. Morning light slanting through the glass door at the end of the corridor. Parking lot visible. Derek's gray Toyota visible beyond that. "I hear you're having trouble checking out," Marcus said. He was maybe 60, dark-skinned, silver-haired, with the particular stillness of someone who'd seen things and processed them slowly. He didn't look confused by the request. He looked unsurprised. "You know about this room? Let's just make sure you get your things together and get moving." Marcus came inside without being invited, looked around briefly, took in the room, checked something near the bathroom that Derek couldn't quite see. Nodded to himself. "Marcus, what is this room?" "It's a motel room, sir. Standard double. You need to move quickly and deliberately. Don't pause. Once you start toward the door, you keep moving. Don't think. Don't hesitate. You get your bag and you walk directly out. I'll stand in the doorway. You keep your eyes on me." That's not an explanation. No, it isn't. But it's what works. "You ready?" Derek looked at Marcus standing solid in the doorway, one hand on the door for him. The hallway behind him was real. Derek could hear a vacuum cleaner somewhere in the building, could smell coffee from the lobby. Small, real details that grounded everything. He grabbed his bag, eyes on Marcus. He walked. He didn't think about where he was or what was happening. He watched Marcus's face. He felt carpet, then the threshold strip of metal, then slightly different carpet in the hallway. He was out. He stopped 3 feet into the hallway and turned. Room 14 behind him, door still open. Marcus standing inside. The room looked ordinary. Bed, dresser, television. That particular beige of budget motels everywhere. Why did that work? Derek asked. Movement without thought. The room needs your attention to pull you back. You stop thinking. It can't catch you. What is it? What's in there? Marcus looked at the room for a moment. Previous guest didn't leave. Someone's in there? Not like a living person, but someone didn't leave. And now it's hard to leave. He shrugged, a gesture of long acceptance. Happens sometimes. Used to be we'd close the room, but the owner stopped doing that after it spread to 13 and 15. Better to know where it is, keep it contained. He keeps renting it out. People keep staying there. Most people don't notice. Most people, their heads are too full to be caught. You have to be paying a certain kind of attention, or the room has to be in a particular mood. Marcus moved into the hallway, pulled the door shut behind him. You're fine now. Have a good drive. Derek stood in the parking lot for a long time before getting in his car. He Googled the Pineview Motor Lodge when he reached a coffee shop 2 miles away. Found mostly generic reviews. 3 stars. Clean enough. Good price. But one review, 3 years old, from a username he couldn't trace. I stayed in room 14 and couldn't leave for 9 hours. Eventually, I got out by not thinking about leaving and just walking. The staff acted like this was known. I never went back, and I advise you to avoid this motel entirely. If you're already reading this from room 14, don't think. Just walk. The review had 47 upvotes. The motel's response beneath it said, "We're sorry you had trouble with your stay. Room 14 has been updated. We hope to see you again." The review was dated November 2019. Room 14 was still being rented. Derek drove north, stopped twice on the highway for air, for space, to feel that movement was real and permanent, and that he was making actual progress through actual geography. He arrived in Oregon 2 days later, told no one what happened, and for a while almost convinced himself it wasn't real. But he developed a habit. He checks checkout times obsessively now, sets multiple alarms, packs the night before. And he never ever stays in a ground floor room at a roadside motel. He can't entirely explain why. The Pineview Motor Lodge in Flagstaff still shows room 14 as available on booking sites. Still $28 a night. Still getting 3-star reviews. Still there. Still waiting for someone paying the right kind of attention. Story number 2. What lives be eaten when departures. Gate C-17 at Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport had been closed for renovation since January, and Priya Vasquez had been sitting in it for 3 hours before she realized the renovation had finished 4 months ago, and the gate was in full operational use, and there was absolutely no reason she should be the only person there. Her phone showed 1:58 a.m. on a Tuesday, and she'd made a catastrophically poor decision to book a 6 a.m. connecting flight instead of an overnight hotel after her Atlanta leg was delayed. The main terminal was behind her, past a long connector hallway, full of other delayed passengers and their noise. She'd come down here for quiet. C-17 was listed as inactive on the departure boards. The door to the jetway locked and dark. She'd been grading papers, drinking bad vending machine coffee. Perfectly ordinary airport misery. Then she looked up and noticed the carpet ended 3 feet in front of her. Not at a wall or a barrier. It simply stopped. Old carpet pattern on her side, then bare concrete subfloor ahead. Then the carpet resumed in a slightly different pattern than she remembered from when she'd sat down. She stood up, approached it. The carpet truly ended in a clean, impossible line. On her side, the industrial blue-gray commercial carpet of Cincinnati/Northern Kentucky International. On the other side, a darker pattern, burgundy and navy, something older, something she associated with airports from her childhood in the 90s. She stepped over the line. The smell hit her immediately. Cigarette smoke. Strong, stale, layered over years. She took 2 more steps and looked back. Her side of the carpet, her rolling suitcase leaning against the seat, her coffee cup on the armrest, all visible. She stepped back, crossed the line. Smell gone. She crossed back. Smell returned. Priya was a high school physics teacher in Cincinnati, 38 years old, currently finishing her PhD thesis on educational methodology, a person whose brain ran on evidence and repeatability. She crossed the line 7 times. The smell was consistent, present on the dark carpet side, absent on the blue-gray side, repeatable and predictable. She stayed on the old carpet side, turned to look at the full gate area. It was different. Not dramatically. The bones were the same. Seating rows, floor to same windows, showing tarmac, a service desk at the gate, but the details had shifted. The seats were upholstered in a style from decades ago. The service desk had different signage, an airline she didn't recognize, letters slightly wrong. Through the window, the tarmac was active, but the planes were old. She could tell from the silhouettes, older aircraft, rounder fuselages, a livery she didn't recognize. A man sat in the seats to her left. She hadn't seen him before, on either side of the carpet line. He was middle-aged, dressed in clothes that fit the scene. Early 90s business casual. He looked at her without surprise. "Bad delay?" he asked. "Yes." Priya sat carefully, 2 seats away. "Yours? Coming up on 9 hours." He didn't seem distressed by this, just resigned. "You flew in from where?" "Atlanta. Originally coming from Austin, teaching conference." He nodded. "Chicago for me, business." "What airline?" He named one. Priya recognized it. A carrier that had gone bankrupt and ceased operations in 2001. She'd flown them once as a child, remembered the logo. "They're still running?" she asked carefully. "Had some trouble last year, but still going." "You?" She named her current carrier. He looked puzzled, shook his head slightly. "Don't know that one." They sat in silence for a moment. The tarmac activity outside was unhurried. She watched a ground crew fuel a plane, moving with the particular unhurried efficiency of people doing shift work. Real people. Real movements. "How long have you been here?" Priya asked. "Since 4 p.m., so." He checked his watch. 12 hours now. Lost count for a while, honestly. It does that. Does what? The waiting. Loses you. You come to the gate. You're somewhere for an indefinite amount of time. You're between where you were and where you're going. Something about that. Something about the in-between. He spoke thoughtfully, like he'd had time to consider it. 12 hours, he'd said. "My name's Priya. Martin." "Martin? How do I get back?" He looked at her. First real reaction she'd seen from him. Something shifted in his eyes. "Back?" "I crossed the line in the carpet. To get here." His face went strange. Not afraid exactly. Hollow. "I don't remember crossing anything. I just sat down to wait." "You sat down when?" "June, I think. June 93. Priya looked at him carefully. He was solid. Present. Breathing. Not a ghost in any cinematic sense. Not transparent or ethereal. A man sitting in an airport gate chair, dressed for his era, present and responsive. "You've been here since June 1993. It doesn't feel like that long." That's the thing. Time here doesn't work properly. I doze sometimes, wake up, and it feels like I just sat down. He looked at his watch again. But sometimes the watch moves faster than it should. I watch it happen. Minutes passing in seconds. Then it stops, and normal time comes back. "Your family, do they know?" "My wife would have reported me missing. That's what you do." He said it calmly, past tense, like a fact about a different era. She moved on, probably. I hope she moved on. Priya looked toward where she'd come from. The carpet line was visible from here, a distinct demarcation. Her suitcase still leaning in her modern seat, her coffee cup. "I'm going back," she said. "Martin, you should come with me." "I've tried. Every day I try. I walk toward the exits and I end up back at the seat. I try the jetway door and it won't open, and then I'm back at the seat. I've tried. Not despair. Acceptance." The tone of a man who had processed something enormous and arrived at equilibrium. "You should go, while you still can. I'm not leaving you here. You're not taking me with you. That's not the same as leaving me. I made choices that brought me here. Sat at this gate, waited, slipped into it. You stepped in deliberately. That's different. You can step back out." "Why can you step out and not in? I mean, why can I?" "You came from the other side. You have somewhere to be. A flight, a home, a life in motion." He smiled, and it was a sad smile, but a real one, human and warm. "I've been nowhere between nowhere for 30 years. Not in motion anymore. Priya stood. Her legs felt wrong, like standing after a long flight, pressure changes and recirculated air. She looked at Martin. He was looking at the tarmac, at the old planes and their crews, peaceful in a way that made her chest hurt. Is there anyone else here? Occasionally. They usually find their way back. A few didn't. He glanced toward the back of the seating area. She hadn't looked back there. She didn't look now. I'm sorry, she said. Safe travels. She walked to the carpet line, crossed it in one step. Smell of cigarettes gone. She turned. The gate area behind her was dark, inactive. Renovation tape across the entrance she'd walked past hours ago. Renovation tape. Gate C-17 looked like nothing had ever been there except orange tape and empty chairs. She checked her phone. 4:27 a.m. 2.5 hours had passed. Not the 3 she'd experienced. She walked back to the main terminal. Found her connecting gate. Boarded her 6 a.m. flight. She looked up the airline Martin mentioned when she landed. Ceased operations. January 1st, 2002. Found news archives about disappearances at Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International. Routine searches turned up nothing matching a Martin, business traveler, Chicago-bound, June 1993. She checked missing persons databases that night in her apartment, exhausted and unable to sleep. Hundreds of entries. She searched by name, by year, by airport. Found nothing definitive. Found too many possibilities. She filed no report. What would she say? She considered calling the airport, asking about Gate C-17, its renovation history. Decided against it. She still travels for conferences, takes different connecting airports when possible, but sometimes her routing brings her back to Cincinnati. Each time, she checks the departure board for Gate C-17, checks its status. Active, inactive, under renovation, whatever it says. She has never gone back down that corridor. She's not sure she could find the carpet line again. She's not sure she'd cross it if she did. But she thinks about Martin. Watching planes he recognizes, waiting for a flight that already left without him 30 years ago. Patient, resigned, not unhappy exactly, just permanently between. Story. Number 3, hospitality. The hotel room should have been empty. Room 312 at the Grand Halston Hotel in New Orleans had been reserved for Carla Briggs for 2 nights. And when she arrived at 11 p.m. on a Friday with her key card in hand, she was too tired from her conference to fully register that the deadbolt engaged from the outside before she touched it, that someone was already inside, that the room had already been lived in. Lived in wasn't quite right. Occupied was closer. The bed was made with the hotel's precision. The towels were fresh. The toiletries unopened. But there was warmth, the particular warmth of a space recently vacated, body heat still radiating from cushions, air disturbed, and one thing that couldn't be explained away. On the desk, a glass of water, still beating condensation. Poured recently. Carla was 45 years old, a corporate attorney from Chicago, not given to imagination. She called the front desk. I think someone was just in my room. Can you check if housekeeping was up here? Of course, ma'am. Our last housekeeping service to room 312 is at 4 p.m. No one should have accessed the room since your check-in. There's a glass of water on the desk. Fresh. Pause. I'm sorry. Could you describe? A glass of water. Clearly just poured. Condensation still forming. Longer pause. I'll send security to do a walkthrough. Security came. Young guy, professional, checked the closet, the bathroom, under the bed. Nothing. He tested the window. Locked from inside. No one here, ma'am. Is it possible housekeeping left the water earlier and the AC kept the condensation forming? Carla looked at the glass. Looked at him. That's not how condensation works. I'll note the incident. Would you like to be moved to a different room? She considered. She was tired. The room was otherwise fine. No. Thank you. He left. Carla drank the water because she was tired and thirsty, and it was easier than thinking about it. It tasted normal. She got ready for bed and was asleep by midnight. She woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of someone breathing. Not her breathing. Another person's breathing, slow and deep. From the other side of the bed, Carla lay completely still, eyes open in darkness, processing. The breathing was real, rhythmic and close. A person was in her bed. She rolled slowly, The other side of the bed was empty, made, undisturbed, but the breathing continued coming from that direction, from an empty space. She turned on the bedside lamp. The room was exactly as she'd left it. Empty. The breathing stopped when the light came on. Carla sat up, heart pounding, and turned on every light in the room. Bathroom included. Nothing. She didn't sleep, sat in the desk chair with lights blazing, working on her laptop, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., waiting for sunrise. Nothing else happened. At 7 a.m. she went down to breakfast and felt slightly foolish, but she asked the concierge casually, over coffee, has the hotel had any unusual incidents reported in the rooms? The concierge was professional, smooth. We take guest concerns very seriously. Is there something I can help you with? I heard breathing last night, from the empty side of the bed. I know how that sounds. Something shifted in the concierge's expression. Small, but there. What room are you in? 312. The shift again. I can certainly have you moved. Just tell me. Please. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to sue you. I just want to know. The concierge leaned slightly forward. The Grand Halston has been operating for 112 years. In that time, room 312 has had a higher rate of complaint calls than any room in the building, not maintenance complaints, the kind of complaints you're describing. What do people report? Presence. Breathing. Occasionally they see something. A figure, usually, sitting in the chair or standing near the window. He paused. Usually only at night. Usually only between 2 and 4 a.m. Do you know why that room? The hotel has records going back to its opening in 1912. In 1927, a guest in room 312 died. He checked in alone, traveling salesman, 1 week stay. Housekeeping found him on the 4th day. The official record says natural causes, heart attack. He straightened up, voice returning to professional register. I'm happy to move you to 315 at no additional charge. What does the unofficial record say? He looked at her, made a decision. The guest in 312 had checked in for 1 week. The hotel's log shows him as checked in and present for that entire week. But based on the medical examiner's report, he'd been dead for 4 days when they found him. He died on day 3 of a 7-day stay. He was there for 3 days and dead for 4. Yes, and the other 4 days. After he died, someone reported him as present. The Do Not Disturb sign was on his door for those 4 days. No one checked. When questioned, the front desk staff at the time said they'd seen him come and go, seen him in the lobby, spoken to him after he was dead. That was his claim, yes. His complaint was that he never got to check out. He was on a 7-day reservation, and he didn't get the full 7 days. The concierge said this matter-of-factly, as if relaying ordinary hotel policy. Carla stared at him. He complained. Not him, obviously, but that's how the staff described the situation later when they were trying to make sense of it. That whatever was there didn't know it was over, didn't know to leave, was simply continuing the stay. Carla moved to 315. Slept fine the second night. Left Sunday morning without incident, but she thought about it constantly afterward. The glass of water, poured for a guest who had somewhere to be. The breathing in the dark, steady and deep, a traveler sleeping soundly. The Do Not Disturb sign on a door for 4 days, someone getting their full 7 days one way or another. She researched the Grand Halston, found reviews mentioning 312 specifically, spanning decades. All the same, breathing, presence, someone in bed. None of them mentioned anything aggressive or threatening, just presence, just occupancy, like someone enjoying their hotel room, having their vacation, on their own terms, past all considerations of checkout time or biological necessity. She found one review that made her stop, written by a user who identified as a frequent traveler. The room itself is lovely. The gentleman who shares it with you is courteous enough. He does not disturb your things. He only asks that you not disturb his. The moment I accepted I was his guest and not the other way around, the rest of the stay was quite pleasant. Carla saved that review. She didn't know why exactly. The Grand Halston still offers room 312. Standard rate, no discount. Currently rated 4.5 stars out of 5. The half-star deduction, across dozens of reviews, always comes down to the same thing. Guests in 312 report they never feel entirely alone. Story. Number 4. The long-term stay. Jerome Watkins moved into the Eastgate Extended Stay Suites in Charlotte, North Carolina, because his divorce made his house impossible and his budget made everywhere else impossible, and the rate was $490 a week, and he thought it would be 2 months at most. That was October. By February, he'd stopped thinking about leaving. Not because he liked it. He'd hated it at first. The thin walls and the smell of other people's cooking and the parking lot security light that hit his window all night. He'd actively wanted to leave from day one, but he'd stopped believing he could. This was different. This was something happening to him rather than a choice he was making. His neighbor in room 8, a woman named Frances who had been there for 4 years, explained it on a Tuesday night over bad wine in the shared laundry room. Frances was 60-something, a retired school librarian, waiting out something she described as temporary when she moved in and which had become indefinite. The longer you stay, the harder leaving gets, she said. Not emotionally, physically, like the building gets grip on you. That's not a real thing, isn't it? How long have you been here? 4 months. Do you still make plans to leave? Still look at apartments? Jerome opened his mouth, closed it. He hadn't looked at apartments in 6 weeks. He'd stopped intending to. Not consciously. It had simply faded, the way pain fades when you stop prodding it. I've been busy. You're not busy. You sit in room 12 and watch television, and go to your accounting job and come back to room 12. You're not busy. You just stopped trying to leave. Frances poured more wine. Martin in room 6 has been here 9 years. Linda in 14 has been here 11. Jim in 22. She stopped. How long has Jim been here? Nobody's sure. He was here when I arrived. He says he doesn't remember checking in. Thinks he's been here since the building opened. When did the building open? 1988. Nobody stays in one motel room for 36 years. Go talk to Jim. Room 22 was at the end of the ground floor corridor. Jerome knocked. A man answered who looked ageless in a disturbing way. Not old, not young, just weathered and still, like a geographic feature. Jim, whoever he was, had the particular flat affect of someone who'd been in the same 400 square feet for too long. Frances sent you, he said. She said you've been here since '88. I think so. Hard to verify. My records from before are gone. I don't think about it much. He gestured inside. Jerome entered. The room was functionally identical to his own, but different in accumulation. 36 years of life in 400 square feet leaves traces, sediment. Shelf units added to every wall, books and objects, and the quiet archaeology of a person. Normal life compressed to its minimum footprint. Why don't you leave? Can't. Not sad. Just factual. I try periodically. Get to the parking lot, get in my car, drive to the road. Then I'm back in my room. No time gap, no memory of turning around. Just here. That's impossible. Yes. What causes it? Jim looked around his room. My theory, for what it's worth, is that the building is designed to keep people. Not maliciously, not consciously, but architecturally, functionally. Every element calibrated to prevent departure. The price keeps people who can't afford to leave. The anonymity keeps people who don't want to be found. The routines keep people who've lost their momentum. He paused, and for some of us, something more literal. You can't physically leave. I can leave the room. Walk the halls. Walk to the parking lot. Drive to the gas station a mile away, but I can't leave permanently. Can't make it stick. Been trying for decades. The building keeps me here. Jerome went back to his room, sat on the edge of his bed. Thought about Frances, 4 years. Martin, 9. Linda, 11. Jim, possibly 36. Thought about himself, 4 months. Thought about the apartments he'd stopped looking at, the departure he'd stopped planning. He called a real estate agent the next morning. Set up 3 apartment viewings for Saturday. Felt the urgency of someone who'd realized the water was rising. Saturday came. Jerome got dressed, took his car keys, walked to his car, drove to the first address, toured the apartment, liked it. Said he'd call Monday to put down a deposit. Drove to the second address, toured it, Also fine. He drove back to give himself time to think before the third viewing. He woke up in his room at Eastgate Extended Stay. No memory of driving back. Last memory was standing in the second apartment, evaluating the closet space. Then his room, his bed, his parking lot view through the gap in the curtains. He called the real estate agent, confirmed he'd visited both apartments that morning and left normally after the second one. The agent confirmed 2 hours had passed between his departure from the second apartment and his waking in his room. He tried again the following weekend, got further, made it to a third apartment, signed a letter of intent, drove back to the Eastgate to collect his things, walked into his room for the last time, started packing, packed his entire room into boxes, loaded them into his car, was at the exit of the parking lot. His room, unpacked. His car outside, he checked from the window, empty. Frances knocked on his door at midnight. She'd heard him moving around. First attempt, third. She nodded. Gets worse each time. I packed everything. I was at the exit. I know, I did the same. Rented a truck once. Had friends help me carry everything out. Called to confirm my new apartment was ready. Waved to Martin and Linda on the way out. She paused. Woke up in bed. Everything back in place. Friends' memories of helping me move are intact. They think I moved. I haven't. How do we get out? Jim has a theory. He thinks someone has to get out from the outside. Someone who was never a guest here, who has no connection to the building. They have to physically remove you. Not help you move. Remove you, like an extraction. Has anyone tried? Linda's daughter tried once. Came to visit. Decided her mother was in some kind of cult situation. Physically took her by the arm and walked her out. Got her to the highway. Linda was in her room by the time the daughter reached the highway on-ramp. Daughter can't explain it. Calls her mother weekly. Thinks she's there by choice. Frances looked at him. The building erases the evidence. Makes you look voluntary. Jerome called his sister in Durham, told her everything. She drove down that weekend, not entirely believing him but willing. She walked into his room, looked at the accumulated life of his 4 months there, his sad divorced man inventory of fast food containers and legal pads and divorce paperwork. Okay, she said, we're leaving. She held his arm. They walked out together. Into the hallway. Into the parking lot. She held his arm the whole time, gripped tight, moving fast. They reached her car. She pushed him in the passenger seat, started driving immediately. Jerome watched the Eastgate Extended Stay get smaller in the mirror. 1 mile. 2 miles. The highway on-ramp. He was still in the car. He was still in the car. He was still. His room. His bed. His window. He screamed. First real raw scream he produced in years. He hit the wall, kicked the chair, screamed again, then sat on the floor and breathed. His phone rang. His sister. What happened? You just disappeared out of the car. I was driving and you were gone. I'm back in the room. Silence. Then Jerome, listen to me. I'm coming back. We'll try something different. Don't. There's no point. There has to be. Frances has been here 4 years. Jim has been here 36 years. He can't even remember checking in. This is what it is. He hung up. Sat on the floor. The parking lot light came through the curtains, the way it always did. The way it had since October. The way it probably always would. Frances knocked at midnight again. She brought bad wine and didn't say anything for a long time. Eventually, you'll adapt. Everyone does. It's not a bad life here. After you stop fighting, we look out for each other. I'm not stopping fighting. Okay. But he was quieter about it after that. Filed it away with the other facts about his situation. He still looked at apartment listings sometimes. Still made plans. But with the particular distant wistfulness of a man looking at vacation photos of places he knows he'll never visit. He's been there 8 months now. He sees Jim in the hallway sometimes. Jim waves. Sometimes Jerome waves back. He still makes plans. Just doesn't tell anyone anymore. Story number 5. Campsite 11. The ranger found Nadia's tent at Campsite 11 at Creekside Wilderness Area in northern Washington State on a Monday morning, which was unexpected because Campsite 11 had been closed to the public for 6 years. The access path blocked with a brown Forest Service sign that said AREA closed, restoration in progress. The kind of sign that mostly got ignored by the kind of people Nadia was. Experienced backcountry campers who'd been ignoring those signs for years. She wasn't in the tent. The tent was set up correctly. Rainfly secured, sleeping bag inside, backpack inside. Camp stove outside with the remnants of a meal cooked not long ago, based on the food smell, and the still warm aluminum pot, water bottle, headlamp, bare canister with food still in it. Everything a person needed for a wilderness stay, all present. No person. Ranger Tobias Gaines was 51 years old, had worked this district for 19 years, had found everything from poachers to illegal grow operations to bodies in these woods. He was not easily unsettled. He documented the scene, called it in, waited for a supervisor and a search and rescue team. Standard protocol. What made him call it in as something other than standard was the journal on the sleeping bag, open, recent entries in neat handwriting. The last entry, dated 3 days ago. Something is wrong with this campsite. I keep waking up here. He read the previous entry, tried to break camp at dawn, packed everything, began hiking out, reached the creek crossing, woke up in my sleeping bag. Pack is unpacked. Everything is put away, and I don't remember doing it. Entry before that, day 3 at campsite 11. Beautiful spot. Didn't mean to stay this long. Keep meaning to move on, but morning's coming, I'm still here. Entry before that, arrived campsite 11 4 p.m. Set up camp. Cooked pasta. Sleeping well despite the sounds. Tobias photographed everything. Let the search and rescue team conduct their search. They found no trace of Nadia in the surrounding wilderness. No footprints beyond the campsite perimeter. No sign of distress or injury. Her car was still in the trailhead parking lot. Had been there 4 days based on the permit she'd signed. He went back to the station and pulled the records on campsite 11. Closed 6 years ago after a series of incidents. Before that, the campsite had an unusually high rate of searches and rescues, significantly higher than comparable sites in the district. Over 17 years of operation, 11 people had gone missing from campsite. 11 specifically, not from the broader wilderness area, not from other sites. From Site 11, the site had been closed under the official reason of trail erosion and habitat restoration. Tobias called the previous ranger who'd managed this district, now retired in Spokane, explained what he'd found. Asked about the closure decision. We closed it because of what the journal you found describes, the retired ranger said. People couldn't leave, not injured, not disoriented, just couldn't leave. They pack up, start hiking out, and end up back at the site. Happened over and over. 11 missing persons. 11 we know of, plus the ones who eventually got out and didn't report it. Or couldn't explain it and chalked it up to bad navigation. 11 who never came back. What's wrong with the site? Geologically, nothing. Spiritually, who knows? The land belongs to the Lekwungen historically. I spoke with an elder once after the 3rd disappearance. She said the site was a gathering place traditionally, where people went who didn't want to be found, where people went when they were done with their ordinary lives. She said the site obliged them. Obliged them how? Kept them. She said the site was good at keeping what was brought to it. Her exact words. It keeps what arrives willingly. Nadia Parker was 29 years old, elementary school teacher, experienced wilderness camper, no history of psychological issues. She had arrived at campsite 11 willingly, with good weather and a 3-day permit. And the kind of frame of mind that drives people to solo wilderness camping. What that frame of mind contained, which she brought to the site willingly, was something Tobias couldn't know from a journal with 4 entries. Search and rescue looked for 10 days, found nothing. He went back to campsite 11 himself, alone, on a Tuesday. Stood in the site. 10 was gone now. Evidence collected. Just the cleared area, the fire ring, the particular quality of a campsite that had held many people over many years. The creek audible nearby. Wind through conifers. He'd been camping for 30 years. He knew how campsites felt. This one felt like it was waiting, patient and capacious and utterly still in a way that wasn't natural stillness. That was something else. Something that understood time differently. He hiked out. Quickly. Without pausing. 3 weeks later, a report from a family who'd hiked near the closed campsite. They reported seeing a woman sitting at campsite 11. Young, dark hair, sitting in a camp chair, reading. When they called to her, she looked up, waved, looked back at her book. They described her from memory. Tobias matched the description to Nadia's photo. He took 2 rangers back to campsite 11. The site was empty. No tent, no equipment, no person. But the fire ring had recent ash. A pot sat on the fire ring, aluminum, clean. He looked at it. It was identical to the pot described in Nadia's permit application as part of her gear list. Her pot. No fire had been lit. No one had been there officially. But her pot was on the fire ring. He took it as evidence. Piked out. Reached the trailhead. When he got back to the station and unloaded his pack, the pot wasn't there. He checked his pack thoroughly. Gone. His colleagues confirmed they'd watched him put it in his pack at the site. Watched him carry it the full 3 miles out. The pot was gone. Nadia was gone. Campsite 11 was as it had always been. Closed, restored, waiting. The case is still open. Classified as a wilderness missing person. No leads, no evidence, no resolution. Tobias retired last year. He thinks about campsite 11 sometimes, about what the elder had said. The site keeps what arrives willingly. He thinks about what Nadia might have been carrying when she signed that permit, what she might have been willing to leave behind. He hopes she's somewhere she chose. He just can't be certain of that. The site remains closed. The sign still says, "Restoration in progress," which might be accurate, Tobias thinks. Just not the kind of restoration the Forest Service had in mind. Story number 6. Last patient in the waiting Wharton. The urgent care clinic on Morris Street in Portland, Oregon, closed every night at 10 p.m. And by 10:15 the staff were usually in the parking lot. So nobody could explain why. When the night manager Sylvie Chen walked through the waiting room for her closing sweep at 10:08 p.m. on a December Thursday, there was a man sitting in the corner chair who hadn't been there 60 seconds earlier. She was certain of the 60 seconds because she'd walked through the waiting room at 10:07 to flip the open sign to closed and the room had been empty. She'd turned back, walked the length of the corridor, reached the break room, heard her name, returned. The man was there. He was middle-aged, wearing a gray coat, holding the number 47 on its little paper pole from the take-a-number dispenser by the door. The last patient of the night had been number 31. The dispenser had been reset at 9 p.m. Nobody had taken a number since. "Sir, we're closed," Sylvie said. He looked at her. His eyes were slightly wrong in a way she couldn't immediately name. Too still, too steady. Like a photograph of a person, rather than a person. "I've been waiting," he said. "I understand. We closed at 10. I can give you referrals for other urgent care locations open 24 hours. Emergency rooms." "I've been waiting," he said again. Same inflection, like a recording. "Are you in immediate danger? Do you need emergency services? I've been waiting since January." Sylvie stopped. The clinic had been open since April of the previous year. There was no January at this location. Since January of what year? The man looked at his number. 47. "My number hasn't been called." Dr. Jintz, Ahmed, the last physician still in the building, appeared in the doorway behind Sylvie. He'd been finishing his notes. She caught his eye, tilted her head toward the man. Ahmed came forward, clinical assessment mode activating automatically. "Sir, I'm Dr. Ahmed. What brings you in tonight?" "I've been waiting since January. I took a number and sat down and I've been waiting." Ahmed looked at Sylvie. She shook her head slightly. The man hadn't been there when she'd done her sweep. Buildings have certain realities. No one had been in this waiting room since 9:40 p.m. when the last patient had been seen and left. "What's your name, sir?" Ahmed asked. They called 31. "I'm 47. "Your name?" The man looked at him with those two still eyes. "I need to see a doctor." "I've been waiting." "I'm a doctor. What's wrong? What are your symptoms?" Something shifted in the man's face. A processing delay, like input taking too long to reach output. "Chest pain," he said finally. "Started in January." Ahmed moved toward him. Physician reflex, 10 years of training and practice. A patient reported chest pain, and Ahmed was already reaching for his stethoscope. He placed it against the man's chest. Listened. Sylvie watched Ahmed's face. Watched it change. Become careful and blank, the way faces go when the brain receives information it can't categorize. What do you hear? She asked. Ahmed stood up slowly. Did not answer immediately. Tried again with the stethoscope. Same blank expression. He put the stethoscope away. I'd like to get some vitals, he said to the man. His voice was controlled. Blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen. Can I do that? Will you call my number soon? Very soon. Ahmed pulled Sylvie 6 feet away, spoke quietly. No heartbeat. He's alive. He's talking. I know. I'm telling you what I heard, which is nothing. Medical equipment malfunction. I checked his pulse manually first. Ahmed showed her his fingers. Pressed them together where they touched the man's wrist. Nothing. That's not possible. Sylvie, I know. The man was sitting calmly, holding his number 47, waiting. They looked at him. He looked at them, or looked toward them. That too still gaze. We have to call someone, Sylvie said. Who do we call? I don't. 911. If he's dead, he's not sitting in our waiting room holding a number and talking about chest pain. Ahmed. I know. They approached him again. Sir, we're going to take very good care of you. Can you tell me your name again? The man looked at his number. You called 31. I'm 47. I'm going to call your number right now, Ahmed said. 47. The doctor will see you now. Something in the man's face shifted. A settling, like a long-held breath releasing, like a weight lifted from somewhere deep. Thank you, he said. I've been waiting. Ahmed led him back toward exam room 2. Sylvie stayed at the front, hands shaking, watching through the window in the door. Ahmed opened the exam room, gestured the man inside. The man walked in. Ahmed followed. Ahmed came back out alone 45 seconds later. He's gone, he said. Out a window. Exam room 2 has no window. There's a solid wall and a door. And I was standing in the door. He walked in and he wasn't there. They checked the exam room together. Empty. They checked the whole building. Every room, every closet, the bathroom, the supply storage. They checked the parking lot. Nothing. The taken number dispenser by the door now read 47 as the last number taken. They hadn't moved it. They'd reset it at 9 p.m. It had advanced on its own to 47. Ahmed and Sylvie sat in the waiting room for an hour before they felt capable of leaving. Neither spoke much. Ahmed filed an unusual incident report that described a patient presenting after closing hours and leaving before examination was complete. Sylvie filed a maintenance request about the number dispenser. They didn't tell the other staff. Who would they tell? What would they say? But over the following weeks, Sylvie researched the clinic's location. The building had housed 3 previous medical facilities over 20 years. Before the urgent care, a family practice. Before that, a walk-in medical center. Before that, an older clinic. She found a news article from 14 years ago. Brief. Buried. A man had died in the waiting room of the original clinic at that address while waiting to be seen. He'd been there for hours. By the time staff noticed he wasn't responding to his called number, he'd been dead for some time. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest. Chest pain, the coroner noted, that likely began hours before death. He'd been waiting too long. Number 47. Sylvie still works at the clinic. Still does the closing sweep. She resets the number dispenser every night at 9 p.m. and checks it every night at 10:08 when she flips the sign and walks through the empty waiting room. It always reads 47. She resets it, leaves quickly. The waiting room is always empty when she leaves. Story number 7. Sublavella. The storage unit facility on Industrial Drive in Memphis, Tennessee was called Safe Store, and the sign out front promised 24-hour access, climate control, and security cameras. And 2 of those 3 things were true. The cameras, the ones Kevin Park knew about, were functional. The cameras he found on day 17 were something else entirely. Kevin was 35, a freelance photographer, and he'd been renting Unit 44 at Safe Store since August to store the overflow from his apartment, camera equipment, old prints, boxes from his parents' estate that he wasn't ready to sort through. He was there most Wednesdays around 9 p.m., organized, efficient, in and out in 20 minutes. On a Wednesday in November, he was reaching for a box on the upper shelf when his hand hit something fixed to the wall behind the shelving unit. He moved the shelving unit out, looked at what he'd found. A camera. Small, professional grade, positioned to see the entire unit. Not mounted like the safe store cameras in the hallway, which were visible and institutional. This one was hidden. Professionally concealed. Someone had installed it deliberately in his unit. He photographed it. Went to the management office. The night manager, a young guy named Tyler, looked at Kevin's photos and became immediately very still. "I'll have that removed," Tyler said. "Who put it there?" "I don't know." "When was it installed?" "I don't know." "Has it been recording me?" Tyler looked at his computer screen. "I don't have access to the security system's full records." "Who does?" "Management. Your management." "I'm night management. The owner. I need to speak with the owner." The owner wasn't available. Kevin filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau that night and called a lawyer friend for advice. The lawyer said to document everything, don't touch the camera, and request all security footage to formal channels. He went back to his unit the next day. The camera was gone. No sign it had ever been there. The screw holes filled with spackle. The paint touched up, perfectly seamless. Tyler was not at the management office. A different staff member said Tyler had taken personal leave. Kevin might have dropped it there. Maybe the camera was the facility's own, an extra surveillance unit. Someone would explain it and reimburse him for the intrusion. He had no interest in making it a bigger issue, but he went back that Wednesday anyway, 9 p.m. And this time, he looked at his unit differently. Looked at the walls. The back wall looked right. The side walls looked right. But the floor of storage unit 44 was vinyl over concrete. The vinyl had a seam down the middle, standard installation. Kevin looked at the seam. It was slightly off. The two halves didn't quite align the way installed flooring would. He got down on his knees, pulled at the seam. The floor came up. Not vinyl over concrete. A hatch. A floor-level door. 2 feet by 3 feet, with a handle recessed flush with the surface. He stared at it for 30 seconds. Thought about Tyler's stillness. Thought about the removed camera. Thought about the filled screw holes and the touched-up paint. He opened the hatch. Stairs. Concrete stairs going down into darkness, lit by a single fluorescent tube far below. He could hear something from the bottom. Not mechanical sound. Voices. Quiet voices in conversation. Kevin stood up. This was the moment in every horror story where the character made the catastrophically stupid choice. He knew that. He stood at the open hatch and thought about it rationally. He was in a public facility with cameras in the hallway. His car was in the parking lot. His phone had a full charge. He took a video of the open hatch, texted it to his lawyer friend with his location, pulled out his flashlight, went down. The stairs were real, solid, recently constructed. 15 steps to a concrete corridor that extended in both directions. The voices came from the right. He went right, flashlight supplementing the occasional fluorescent tube, and reached a door, metal, institutional, a small reinforced glass window at eye level. Through the glass, a room. Furnished, lit, occupied. 3 people inside. They were seated around a card table, playing cards, talking. A man and 2 women, no particular age, distinguishing quality, wearing ordinary clothes, looking completely normal. Kevin knocked on the door glass. They looked up. Did not seem surprised. The man stood, came to the door, opened it from the inside. "New resident?" the man asked. "No. I rent unit 44. I found these stairs." "Through the floor hatch?" The man nodded. "That's how most people find us." "Who are you?" "People who came here to store things and found the stairs." He gestured at the room. It was larger than Kevin had realized, extending back into more space. A living area, organized and comfortable in the way improvised spaces become over time. Furniture that had clearly been brought down, piece by piece. A kitchen area with a camp stove and a battery-operated refrigerator. "How long have you been down here?" The 2 women at the card table exchanged a glance. "Hard to say," one of them said. "We've been here longer than Demetrius." She nodded at the man who'd answered the door. "And Demetrius found us when he'd already been here a while." "You live here?" "In a basement under a storage facility." We intended to leave, same as you'll intend to. Demetrius sat back down, picked up his cards. You'll go back up, call someone, try to get us help, and then you'll find yourself back here. It's easier to accept that quickly. Took me a long time. What's keeping you here? We've thought about that extensively. Best theory is the facility itself. Safe Store's designed to keep things. Everything you bring here, the company considers it theirs to some extent, subject to their lien. You default, they take your stuff. We came here with our belongings and became one more thing. The facility retained. The other woman said, we're stored. That's the most accurate way to describe it. Kevin went back up the stairs, got into his car, drove away, drove to his lawyer friend's house and showed him the video of the open hatch, called the police, filed a report about possible captives in an underground facility. Police went to Safe Store, searched the facility, found nothing unusual, certainly found no underground room. Tyler, the night manager, was back at work, said he had no knowledge of any sub-level. Kevin researched Safe Store, found nothing publicly wrong with it, then found one thing, buried in county records. A variance application from when the facility was built 12 years ago, approved for additional sub-level storage, excavation permit, construction permit, and approved and documented sub-level. He brought this to police. They went back, searched again, found a concrete sub-level used for mechanical equipment, ventilation, electrical, plumbing access. No people, no card table, no furnished living space. Kevin spent 3 days trying to make something happen officially. Nothing did. He went back to Safe Store on the following Wednesday, Unit 44, 9 p.m. Moved the shelving unit, looked at the back wall. No hatch. Seamless vinyl floor. Freshly installed. He could tell from the smell and the slight curl at the edges still relaxing into place. He pressed his ear to the floor, heard nothing for 30 seconds. Then, faint and deep, the sound of two people talking. The murmur of a card game in progress. He pressed his palm to the floor. It was warm. He requested the termination of his storage contract that night and was charged an early termination fee that he paid without argument. He moved his belongings out over the following weekend. Every trip quick and purposeful, never pausing, never exploring. He doesn't use storage facilities anymore. Keeps everything in his apartment, cramped and impractical. His parents' unsorted boxes stacked in the hallway. His lawyer friend thinks he's become a hoarder. It's possible, but it's also possible he's just thought carefully about what it means to put something somewhere temporary, and what facilities designed for retention might retain, and what category he fits into when he's inside one. He keeps everything close, keeps it moving, keeps himself the same way, just in case belonging somewhere temporarily has more consequences than he ever thought possible.